Lesson 2, the common chord. This is Molendinarius here from Latinum. You can find Latinum at Patreon if you feel like supporting this channel. Pupil. Will you tell me more about chords? Teacher. You must first understand that, in Thoroughbass, the relations of notes to each other depend on the distances at which they stand from each other in the scale. Now, if I write the notes of the scale and number them, you will find C is the third above A. Here's the C, this is A, B, C. And E is the fifth above A, B, C, D, E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, so here we have it. But if I played E an octave higher than in the above example, here is E, and I played E here, it would be a great many more than 5 notes above A. Yes, but in Thoroughbass, you are only to consider the notes as they relate to one octave. So, if you play any A you please in the bass, all the E's in the pianoforte, all the E's in the pianoforte are considered its fifths. Do you understand that? I know you say that it is so, but I do not know why it is so. Will you tell me? The reason is simply this. Because the octave of every note is nothing but the repetition of the note itself in a different pitch, or rather, because the same sounds recur at the distance of a certain number of intervals, in the same way as the days of the week come in regular rotation. Ah, yes, I know what you mean. Sunday comes again on the 8th day, and A comes again on the 8th note. And therefore, it is called its octave, for octavus in Latin means the 8th, or octavus. Now, to prove the identity of sound, you may play on the pianoforte, or harpsichord, or keyboard, 2 C's, for instance. And, if it is in tune, they will make but one clear, steady sound. But, if you play D and C together, the sound will jar and produce what is called discord. I remember when you tuned your harp last night, you made the E flat on the harp sound just the same as the E flat I struck on the pianoforte. Now then, you comprehend why the distances of notes are reckoned only according to their relative situations in an octave, and not with reference to the extent or compass of any particular instrument. Yes, and I will always remember that E is the fifth to A. It is always the fifth above A. But you need not give yourself much trouble in remembering the distances of notes, as you can always count them on your fingers. And you know you are very fond of pretending to play on the table when you cannot open the pianoforte. Only recollect, whilst you are drumming your fingers on the table, that in thorough bass, both the first and the last notes are to be reckoned. Oh, now I think I know the meaning of writing thorough bass in figures instead of notes. If I was to write A in the bass and put a 5 to it, it would be just the same as writing E to it, would it not? Yes, exactly. And has every note a chord belonging to it? Every note has many chords belonging to it. And how are all the chords made? That is a comprehensive question, for each separate chord is made in a different manner. In one respect only, all chords are alike, and that is, they have all some one root note or fundamental bass. What is fundamental bass? The term fundamental bass may be applied either to that succession of bass notes which serves for a foundation to a whole melody, or to the particular note in a chord from which the relations of the remaining notes are taken. And does root note and fundamental bass mean the same thing? Yes. A root note to a chord is its fundamental bass. This root note is sometimes transferred from the bass to the treble. Then how can it be called the fundamental bass? Because it is still the foundation of the harmony. Sometimes it is played both in the bass and in the treble, but it is always to be found somewhere in every chord, and is the groundwork of the whole. Just the same as in the picture books of Little Henry and Little Fanny, it is always the same little child at the bottom, though its dress and accompaniments change very often. And sometimes they alter so, one would scarcely know them to be the same. Well, the first dress of the root note is its common chord, or the chord of 3, 5, 8, written this way, 3, 5, 8. And that means that when the third, the fifth, and the eighth, or octave, of a bass note are played together, they form the common chord of that root note. Now, suppose I played C in the bass. What would be its common chord? You can tell me by counting the notes on your fingers. C, 1, D, 2, E, 3, F, 4, G, 5, A, 6, B, 7, C, 8. You need not count beyond the fifth, for you know the octave is always the same as the root note. So then, E G, and C make the common chord of C. Thus, so here we go. 1, 2, 3. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 5, 8. So here are some examples. C, D, 3, 5, 8. E, 3, 5, 8. F, 3, 5, 8. G, 3, 5, 8. A, 3, 5, 8. B, 3, 5, 8. And finally C, 3, 5, 8. These examples are to be repeated on all the different notes till the pupil can readily find and name the proper thirds, fifths, etc. by counting them on its fingers. The correct chords are subjoined to prevent any mistakes. And here are the subjoined, that is, joined below, chords. C, the third, the fifth, and the octave. D, the third, the fifth, and the octave. E, the third, the fifth, and the octave. F, the third, the fifth, and the octave. G, the third, the fifth, and the octave. A, the third, the fifth, and the octave. B, the third, the fifth, and the octave. And so on. Now, before we close this lesson, let me prove whether you remember it. How are notes reckoned? By their distances from each other in an octave. In counting these distances, are both the first and last notes counted? Yes. What is the root note or fundamental base of a chord? The particular note, which is the foundation of a chord, or from which all the other sounds of a chord proceed. Is it always played in the bass? No. It is sometimes played in the bass, sometimes in the treble, and sometimes in both. Must it be found somewhere in every chord? Yes. What is a common chord? The third, fifth, and eighth of a root note. And here there's a footnote from the author. In some chords, as for instance that of 3/4, the proper root of the harmony is not pleasing to the ear, and is therefore usually omitted. See Calcott's Musical Grammar. As it is, however, my wish at present being only to make the pupil thoroughly understand the first principles and general rules of thorough bass, I avoid mentioning the exceptions to them, for the sake of being more distinctly understood and correctly remembered. The exceptions, however, to this rule are very few, and only found in discords, where the leading note is sufficiently powerful to guide the ear to its proper root. See Calcott.